Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. I am coming on camera. I just forgot something. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. Sorry, I'm just getting myself organised. Right, let me put my camera on. Start camera. Yes, you can see me. So hi, let me start again. It's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to you all, as always. Thank you to subscribers, special thank you to members. Thank you to everyone who supports my channel by sending emails, leaving nice messages, sending super stickers, buying Ko-fis, etc., PayPaling me. You're all so kind, thoughtful. All my supporters are the best. Thank you so much. Now, I'm a bit caught out this morning because I received an email from someone who sent me the details that I'm going to talk. I was planning on doing another video about Jean and Betsy Hackman. Sorry, I've got as usual, as soon as I go live, everything starts going on. Where are we? Yeah, no, that's fine. Don't have to reply to that. Everything's happening at the moment, so it was like the Rachel Marin trial, the guilty verdict. Now the interrogation video has come out, so I need to be covering that at some point. I've been preparing, a special video for a case that concerns sort of Britain and Spain that I wanted to do. I've been preparing that. I've nearly finished that. We've got the next interrogation of Richard Allen, the Delphi murderer, to watch. And then last night, Chris Proudfoot in the Sebastian Rogers case had a complete meltdown on a YouTube channel, and who can blame him? And I've got that video that I want to show. So lots of things going on, just so much to talk about, so much to chat about, and not enough time, is it? Anyway, so what I had been planning to talk about Jean Hackman and his wife Betsy, of course, who were very sadly found deceased, weren't they, earlier in the year? And also one of their dogs that was deceased. And, it seems that Betsy died of this hantavirus that is spread by rodents. And I had seen an article that was saying that their residence was rodent infested. So they lived in New Mexico, in Arizona. Sorry, not in Arizona, in New Mexico. It may be in Arizona, actually. You know what? I'm not brilliant with geography. And they lived in a very isolated house. They kept to themselves. They didn't have people coming. It still amazes me that, multimillionaire doesn't have a cleaner or anyone to. Why have a great big property like that, and then you can't deal with all that by yourself? But anyway, that's how it was. They were intensely private, and it's just quite strange that just by their keenness to be private, if you like, it's ended up public, everything about the way they lived, the way they died. If they hadn't been maybe quite so private, they would have had cleaners, they would have had helpers at the house. They would have been discovered, because their bodies weren't discovered for weeks, it's believed. So, it's ironic, isn't it, that their very desire for privacy led to everything being so public, because people, it's all like strange circumstances. Whereas if every day somebody would have been coming in to check on them, just wouldn't have got to this, would it? So it's quite ironic that. And also, of course, not only they died, but the dog died as well, one of the dogs, and the other dogs were probably absolutely traumatized. So that's what we're going to look at in this video. We're going to look at how it's been reported that their property was in fact rodent infested. So it's quite likely that Betsy did contract this hantavirus. And then we're going to see this new body cam video that's been released, which shows, the property and the disarray that it was in, and I think Betsy was trying to do too much. Maybe she was too proud, too private. And of course, Jean supposedly had advanced Alzheimer's. Having said that, he was driving around in a car. So, it's all a bit odd, isn't it? Of course, Jean was, in his 90s. Betsy was much younger, only in her early 60s. She probably never expected that she would die first, which is what is thought to have happened. And then Jean, people are saying that he could not look after himself, so he's ended up dying, having a heart attack, just probably because of not eating or not being looked after. Whereas, did he even know that Betsy was dead? Why didn't he call for help? Is it because he didn't know how to call for help because of his Alzheimer's? And yet he knew how to drive. So it's very sad. It's very strange. And as I say, I think this couple's desire for privacy has actually led to their deaths being so public, and they probably would not like it at all. But, at the end of the day, Gene Hackman was an iconic actor, a famous actor, and all the circumstances of his death have been strange. And it's bound to create attention, public attention. There's just no other way around it. Anyway, let me take the banner off, say hello to the people that are in chat. Hi to the rest of you at home, lurkers. Love you loads. Thank you for watching. Hi to those of you that are watching on replay, crew. And thank you for caring about Jean and Betsy. And the dog. I mean, I'm starting to get a little bit angry with Betsy. And, it's not fair because obviously she's deceased. But I'm starting to get a bit angry with both of them, that they live like that. And as a consequence, one of their dogs died. And the other dogs were traumatized because they should have had some, even if they didn't want people coming into the house, they should have had something put in place that if they hadn't been seen for a certain amount of time, or, that if they didn't want their family around or they didn't want people around, they could have had an arrangement where Betsy had to ring every day, say at 6 o'clock, to some company. And if she didn't ring, over, say, let's say if 2 days went by that she didn't make this phone call, the company sent someone round. There could have been something done, because rather than them lying there for all that time, and that dog could have been saved. Even Jean might have been saved, because how if Betsy died first and apparently was dead for a little while before Jean died, if there'd been some sort of security put in place, welfare security, whereas, if they didn't want people coming to the house every day, surely they could have just had some sort of agreement where Betsy had to ring every day at 6 to some, I don't know, welfare company. There's got to be something. When you're a millionaire, you don't have to worry about the cost of things. So what you have to worry about is safety. And just being rich and wanting privacy does not entitle you to put your dogs at risk, and your husband, or, if it was that he was so far gone with Alzheimer's, was she dealing with everything? But why was he driving? Anyway, that's what we're going to talk about. So let me just say hello to people who are in chat. Hi, Angel. Hi, Bluebell. They're talking about biscuits. Yeah, exactly. They were living in an isolated area. He was ill with Alzheimer's, apparently. And Betsy, although she wasn't old, she was still 62, living in an isolated area like that. And they had dogs that they were responsible for. You always have to, it's really made me think, about my dogs and, you know, we don't live anywhere like that, and it's rare that the dogs are on their own. But you know, it's a worry, isn't it? If something happened to us while we were out, you know, well, we would get found quicker. At the end of the day, we'd get found quicker, and hopefully people would come to the house and realise that we had dogs, even if they were crated or whatever, or friends would tell them or whatever. You just never know, do you? I'm thinking of getting a little thing saying, I've got dogs at home, go and let them go and sort them out, you know, just in case we're in an accident or something, or have a medical emergency. You know, I want my dogs sorted out. Don't want them just leaving and nobody realises that they're not being fed or whatever. Anyway. Okay, so let's have a look at this article in The Guardian, first of all, which just explains the state of the property. Then we're going to look at the video, which will show clearly the state of the property. So New Mexico Public Health Department's report found evidence of nests and droppings in the property's outbuildings, but not at the main residence. So, I mean, did Betsy go to these outbuildings regularly? You know? You know, we just, I mean, at the end of the day, why she had this virus in her system, but he didn't, Jean didn't. So maybe it's Betsy who would go to the outbuildings. I mean, who knows how she contracted it, but it seems from this report, it seems more likely that it did happen to her, you know, that she did have the virus. So an environmental assessment of Gene Hackman's home after the deaths of the actor and his wife Betsy Arakawa revealed that rodent infestation in outbuildings and garages, it has been revealed. So records obtained by CNN show that the New Mexico Department of Public Health conducted a home site environmental assessment on the 5th of March, a week after their bodies were found, and that rodent feces, a live rodent, a dead rodent, and a rodent nest were found. So there were rodents around. This is really what I'm trying to say, even though they weren't in the main home where they lived. But we will see in a minute when we watch the video the state of the home where they lived. So New Mexico's chief medical investigator said that Betsy died. She was 65. She died of hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, while Jean died of heart disease some days later, with advanced Alzheimer's disease contributing. And hantavirus is a rare but potentially fatal disease. It's a very rare thing for people to die of this virus. Extremely rare, but not unheard of. And it's spread by infected rodent droppings. So the medical examiner said that someone suffering from hantavirus without treatment can die very quickly after the later stage sets in, potentially in 24 to 48 hours. It's not uncommon to find someone down on the floor as part of a terminal collapse, so to speak, and that may very well have been what happened, she said. The disease causes flu-like symptoms, such as fatigue, fever, and muscle aches at first, before respiratory symptoms appear approximately a week later, including coughing, shortness of breath, and the lungs filling with fluid. According to the report, the property contained 8 outbuildings that showed signs of infestation, while the main house was clean with no signs of infestation. However, there were sightings of rodents, a nest, feces on vehicles on the property. What? And live traps were found in the outbuildings. So somebody had been in those buildings and was aware of the rodents. And the assessment was carried out to determine the level of hazard to first responders and emergency personnel, and concluded the level of risk in the main residence was low. Okay, so there you go. So there was definite rodent infestation, and it was known about because there were traps that were laid. So was it Betsy trying to do all that herself, you know, and that's how she ended up. You know, contracting this virus. It's so very sad. It is so very sad. You know, my heart goes out to Betsy in one way, but in another way, I'm starting to get a little bit angry with her. And I don't mean that in a nasty way, but for why there wasn't some. She loved her dogs. We know she loved her dog. This video that we're going to look at now, it's broken my heart, honest to God, to watch it. Really did. Because this poor dog that was guarding Betsy's body, you know, I just seen its little face here. Look at this. Look at its little face. When the police went in, look at the state of the house. What's the point in having millions of dollars and, you know, what, you're going to live like that? You know, honest to God, I'm really sort of beyond me. And I do feel that, yeah, they're sort of desperation for privacy led to the death of that other poor dog that was in a crate. And luckily that these dogs didn't die as well, the other two dogs. They must have had access to some food and water. Probably, I think there may be like a lake in the property. There were probably, water's the most important thing, isn't it? I think, you know, dogs, just the same as people, probably can live quite a long time without food, but they can't live without water. I mean, God, we have a German Shepherd, and the amount of bowls of water a day that dog goes through, you know, just the thought of them going weeks without water, or that one that was in the cage, you know, it must have suffered. And I am really angry about it. And I'm not only upset for that dog, but this dog's little face here in this picture. Honest to God, I could just cry. I literally could cry. Hi, Heather. It's so sad. And this could have been avoided. I think that's why I'm so angry about it, because this could have been avoided. You know, it's about a couple who've got means. They could have made some sort of provisions. I think they were too proud. Can be too proud. Anyway, let's have a look at this video. So it's, sorry, I've got to give the source, which is tmz.com. Don't know anything about them, but I hope they won't copyright strike me. We'll see.
Right here, he's guarding her.
You know, they shouldn't copyright strike. This is a body cam. You know, this video doesn't belong. You know, I always feel the same about body cams, interrogations. They don't belong to anybody. You know, these belong to the police departments. If somebody gets hold of it, you know, thinks to sort of send off and ask for it and get sent it, they don't normally charge for them. I know, because I've sent off for things. So I don't like it when, you know, you hear of people trying to sell these videos or you know, copyright striking them. This video does not belong to anyone except the police department.
The dog?
Yeah, AC went up to him.
Look at this little dog. Honest to God, because his face. It's just that it doesn't know what the hell is going on. Why, what's up with my mum? Why is she lying on the floor? What's happened to my dad? Where's the other? Why is the, you know, when that dog, I can't even think about, because the dog that was in the cage, you know, it will have been in distress before it died. And these dogs, you know, they won't have known what to do.
Pretty friendly, but. And then there's another 10-7 dog around the corner in the kennel.
That's really weird. When's the last time we heard from her?
2.5 weeks ago.
Is he gonna do anything?
AC went in there.
You want me to go in first?
Yeah. Hey, buddy.
I guess Connell's gonna come down as well.
Okay.
So they have, you know, they've blocked out like the Betsy's body, etc. I mean, you know, it's so tragic. But look at the state of that place. Honestly, God, it made me feel a lot better about my house. My house is always a mess. But it's not dirty, but it's always a mess. But it doesn't look like that. You know, I tell you what, if I could afford a cleaner, I would definitely have a cleaner at least once a month to just come in. Because the other thing about having a cleaner is it makes you tidy up, you know, because a cleaner couldn't go in and clean that house because there's stuff everywhere. So what happens, the good thing about having a cleaner as well is the night before the cleaners come in, you're normally putting everything away and at least making it, you know, so that somebody can clean. So...
Huh. Let's try to open a couple windows if we can, just in case. Hey, Baba.
Oh, look. Look his little face. It's like my mum. So the other dog is in there, unfortunately deceased in the crate.
He's running around.
Now look at this place. You know, so with the money that they had, they obviously bought a load of stuff. You know, it's like hoarding, isn't it? Having all that stuff just piled up, but they wouldn't pay for a cleaner, or someone's coming every day, make sure they're okay, or even at least call them every day. That's what you would have if you don't want people in your house. So you would have a facility where some company called you every day and until you answered to make sure you're okay. And if you didn't answer, how were they just allowed to lie there for weeks? Why was there nothing put in place by Betsy or Jean? Obviously, Jean, towards the end, he was very, very elderly. But, once you realise that that's the way things are going, that Jean had dementia or Alzheimer's, Betsy should have thought about what would happen if something happened to her. It's all right being proud and wanting to be independent. I understand all that, but you've got responsibilities. You've got responsibilities to your dogs, and she had a responsibility to Jean. And I don't want to be horrible about Betsy. I'm not being horrible. I just don't understand why, some provisions weren't put in place. I just don't understand. Let me know what you think, of course, in comments. What do you think? Do you think something... it's too late now, obviously. But if this is a lesson that can be learned by anyone who has animals, who lives on their own, thing is, even if you live on your own, and even if you have family, let's face it, if someone's if your son or daughter phoned you, would they expect you to answer every day? No. How many days would they leave it? They could leave it a week. They might think you'd gone on holiday, or they might be on holiday, so there's got to be, you've got to have some arrangement. I am literally asking all of you to have some sort of arrangement, especially if you live on your own, where your family member or somebody, a friend, anything, phones, don't have to be every day, but certainly say every 3 days. You don't want to be lying there for weeks. Of course, you might not even be dead. You might just be injured, unconscious, can't get to the phone. You might have broken something and the phone's through in another room or whatever. This happened to my sister, actually. One of my sisters, who now, unfortunately, she's got Alzheimer's. She's in a home now. But when she was in her flat, so they got her, she was in like a house, that she'd brought her children up in, a council house, which is like a government-owned, council-owned house. She was in the council house. She brought her children up there. And then, of course, eventually she was in there on her own. And so it was swapped for a flat, so they put a family in the house that she'd had all those years, because one of her daughters was so worried about her because there was stairs. It was a big house with a big garden, and she knew she was starting with this sort of Alzheimer's. Not Alzheimer's, but dementia, I think she's got. So they moved her into a smaller flat. I think it was either a 1 or 2 bedroom flat. Swapped, they do these swaps. So they put a family in the big house. And my niece thought that my sister would be safer, in the flat. But funnily enough, she wasn't, because the flat she wasn't used to. She was used to the house. She'd lived there, for the past, God knows, 40 odd years or whatever. And now she was in a flat where she wasn't familiar, even though there were no stairs. She kept falling out. She kept falling out of bed, and then it was dangerous for her because she had to cross the road to go to the shops, and then she lost her purse, and there was lots of things happened. But luckily, my niece was in contact with her every day. So when she couldn't get hold of her one day, she phoned the police or whatever, social services or whatever, went round there. They had to break down the door because my sister had fallen out of bed and couldn't move, couldn't get to her phone, couldn't phone for help. So fortunately, she was only there for a day. I say only there for a day. I mean, 24 hours is a long time to be, just sat there, can't move, in pain, in agony. Anyway, and they took her to the hospital and she was fine. And this was quite a few years ago, probably 5 years ago. But of course, since then, her Alzheimer's got worse, and she's never moved back home since. She's in a care home, but she's looked after. My niece goes and takes her out, and they go out to shows and this, that, and the other. So it's had a happy ending. So, but what I'm trying to say is, my niece knew because she would ring her mum every day, and she knew when she sort of tried to ring her one day, it went into the next day, still couldn't get hold of her. It was time to go there and get there. And of course, the door was locked. No one was answering. So anyway, so that had a happy ending. But that's how it should be. People shouldn't be just lying there for longer or animals should not be just left there for longer than a day. And for a couple like this, that had a lot of people don't have a lot of financial means to do it with a company. They'd have to do it with their family or friends. But this couple did, and they had family as well. But it seems like they weren't very close to the family.
Where's he?
He's actually, I don't know how to get there through here. If we walk back outside, there's another.
He's been down for a while.
Did you guys start photos and stuff?
No, I haven't taken photos yet.
Two totally separate areas.
No, it's strange.
So yeah, maybe she was depressed.
Who are you again?
I'm Jesse.
Jesse?
Yeah.
You have a driver's license?
Handyman, caretaker.
Oh, this is Jessie. This is one of the interviews that they had on the site. We'll watch that actually. So yeah, maybe she was depressed. Maybe she had issues. Apparently, she had been searching flu-like symptoms on her computer. It seems like she wasn't feeling very well, to be fair. Anyway, let's see what this guy had to go.
He's a handyman caretaker?
Yeah. I've worked for him for 16 years.
Okay. So I'm assuming she's been there a while?
It looks like that. Probably less than a week, but several days at least.
Oh, okay.
We haven't had no contact with her for 2.5 weeks, and so I got concerned and got a hold of Dwayne, got a hold of her mom, and trying to get a wellness check. And then the bug guy left and said the dogs are out. And that's when I knew something was wrong, and that's when I got Ron. She's probably been down for
So yeah, they could have had this guy, you know, checking on them or whatever. I mean, he hadn't seen them for 2.5 weeks. You know, there's definitely something they could have done, whether she was depressed or not. At the end of the day, she loved her dogs and she should have thought of her dogs. I mean, you know, I feel like I'm being harsh, but it just, anyway, if nothing else, we've learned a lesson from this. This is a lesson for all of us not to be too proud. And I've said in other videos, it's sort of similar. Then when my dad died, you know, he was another one who was too proud to ask for help looking after my mum who had Alzheimer's, and eventually it killed him. He died of a heart attack. But luckily where they lived, you know, it wasn't like this, you know. And my mum sort of found him deceased and went, you know, but she was wandering up and down the street, you know, crying when the neighbours saw her because she didn't really understand what had happened. This is the problem here. Even if Gene saw Betsy, realised what had happened to her, maybe he went, you know, he's miles away from anywhere. And why did he not phone anyone? Maybe he wasn't capable of it. You know, we don't know how bad his Alzheimer's was really. Just surprises me that if he was driving, surely he could have rang the police or he would have realised she was deceased. Surely the dog that was in the cage would have been crying. And, you know, just I still think it's quite odd, the whole thing.
You guys help me out with something?
At least a week.
Okay.
Well, we don't know where he's at. His car is here.
Okay.
Usually,
You don't know who's at?
Gene, the husband.
The husband? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Go again.
The car's here also?
He's 95.
1-8, can you give me a call? I need you guys to help me out with something.
Too.
Oh, wow.
I guess nobody's heard from them in 3 weeks? 2.5, 3 weeks?
Caretaker 3 weeks, me 2.5 weeks was last contact.
And did you hear whose property this is?
No.
Gene Hackman.
I've already been threatened.
Yeah.
We have to keep it on
His,
the down
that's his
low.
wife that's deceased. We just don't know where he's at.
Okay.
Oh my God.
So Gene Hackman?
So as far as we went in,
So he's just said that's his wife that's deceased, but we don't know where he's at. So they hadn't found Gene then. I mean, it's like a little, you know, I say little, it's massive, isn't it? Look at all the land around it. You know, they knew they were isolated. I know they wanted to be isolated, but you've got to be sensible about things. You've got to think about your animals.
I stepped in like 2-3 steps just to see her, and then to look if anybody's in the bedroom behind, and then we just walk right back out. So
Okay.
we've only gone in just a couple steps.
Okay, cool. I'll go in there.
Yeah,
and
we ran around the whole property. It's huge. It's a big.
Didn't they say when we listened to the 911 call, I thought they said that they couldn't get in because the door was locked. Now it's just said, oh, we just went in a few steps. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of different information about this case as well, I think. Definitely the 911 call, the person who phoned the 911 said that the door was locked.
Property.
Okay. I have more deputies that are
Another
coming.
house up on the top too.
There's a dog in the kennel, but he looks deceased.
If we could find out if he's deceased or not, we
He's
can
not
get him some
moving.
help.
Oh,
Find out if you guys can, because
Yeah.
she loved her dogs.
I was whistling and kind of hollering in there, and that dog did not budge.
Nothing.
So
yeah.
Right here. He's guarding her.
The dog?
Yeah. AC went up to him. He seems pretty friendly, but. And then there's
Oh,
another
that little
10-7
dog.
dog around the corner in the kennel.
That looks really weird.
Do you know, it reminds me so much of our dog, of our German Shepherd. I'm going to put emoji up for those. Yeah, this is our German Shepherd. You know, they're beautiful dogs. They're so loyal. You know, that dog's little face there just breaks my heart, honestly.
When's the last time I heard from her?
2.5 weeks ago.
Is he gonna do anything?
AC went in there.
You want me to go in first?
Yeah. Hey, buddy.
I guess Kano's gonna come down as well.
Okay. Huh. Let's try to open a couple windows if we can, just in case. Hey, Baba.
Sitting right there.
Another dog?
Yeah, he's running around.
Where's he?
He's actually, I don't know how to get there through here. If we walk back outside, there's another.
He's been down for a while.
Did you guys start photos and stuff?
No, I haven't taken photos yet.
Hi.
We're in totally separate areas.
No, it's strange.
So, okay, before we, what was that then? Hang on. Before we finish, I just want to listen to the 911 call again. And then I've got to go. Because this guy who rang the 911 definitely said he couldn't get into the house. It was locked. Anyway, there you go.
What is it? Emergency.
Hello, my name is. I think we just found one deceased person inside the house. What's the address here? There's no address. I'm going to wait for you at the gate. I'm going to wait for you to please send somebody really quick. I'm the caretaker for the subdivision. Damn.
Okay. How old is the patient?
I have no idea.
You don't know? Okay, that's fine. Is the patient a male or a female?
A female and a male, probably. I don't know, sir. Just send somebody up here real quick.
Okay. Are they awake?
I have no idea.
Are they breathing?
I have no idea. I'm not inside the house. It's closed. It's locked. I can't go in. But I see them. She's laying down on the floor from the window.
Okay.
Yeah, she's gone.
Okay.
Yeah, he definitely said he can't go into the house. But though that handyman who spoke earlier said they went into the house a few steps. So I don't know. It all seems strange.
Do they appear to be completely awake?
On the way?
Do they appear to be awake or alert?
No. It's not.
Okay.
You know, he was so frustrating, this 911 responder, because the guy said to him they were dead. And he kept saying, did they look alert or awake? He's like, no, you have to, they're dead. I told you they were dead. But he definitely says he can see both of them. But that other handyman said they could only see her.
Okay. Did you hear them talk or cry?
No.
Okay.
Dear me.
Okay. Are they moving at all?
Oh.
No, they're not moving. Just send somebody up here really quick.
Okay, my units are underway, okay?
It just sounds bored stiff, that dispatcher. You know, it was a very frustrating call, that I thought, because the guy said to him right from the beginning they were dead, and he kept saying, are they alert? Are they awake? Are they crying out? Are they moving at all? No, they're dead. God. Anyway, there you go. So I just thought I would show you that, and rest in peace, of course, Betsy and Jean, but also that poor dog who died. Zinner was it, I think the name of the dog was. So, you know, this is my frustration a bit now, is I do think that this situation could have been prevented. You know, the dog situation, definitely. And maybe even Gene, you know, if he would have been found earlier, he wouldn't have ended up having a heart attack. So, you know, I just literally cannot get my head around the fact that no provision was put in case anything happened to Betsy. I know she was young in one sense. She was younger than Jean, 30 years younger than Jean, but she was still 65. And to be honest, it wouldn't matter if she was 65 or 20. You know, anything can happen. Anyone can trip up, have an accident, fall down the stairs. You know, most accidents happen in the home. This should not have been so isolated without any provision for, if, you know, somebody ringing at least every day. If they didn't want anybody actually going to the house, that's fine. We understand privacy. Then have somebody phone in, and then if they don't get through, you know, on, you know, you'd have a stipulation, wouldn't you? Maybe 2 or 3 days maximum if they didn't hear, you know, if they couldn't get through and she didn't ring, say, you know, it's like when your alarm goes off, you know, when people have alarms and they go out, and then sometimes a dog can set the alarm off or whatever. Normally what happens, the alarm goes off, the alarm company rings the person, says, oh, the alarm's going off in your house, and they'll keep ringing that person until they answer. You know, what do you want us to do? Do you know if there's anybody in your house? Is there any reason why your alarm might be going off? And then finally, when they get through to the person, it's like, oh, no, that'd be my dog, or I forgot to set the alarm, or I didn't set it properly, or blah, de, blah, de, blah. Or no, yeah, you know, there shouldn't be anybody there, get somebody there straight away. That is all they needed, and they could afford it. So, you know, I just don't, this is a bit beyond me, to be honest. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for caring about Jean and Betsy, but also the dog. And the reason I'm so preoccupied about the dog is because the dog could not do anything. You know, the dog was in a crate, you know, and that is really breaking my heart. And then the other 2 dogs being traumatized, that dog there, you know, just guarding Betsy's body. It's heartbreaking, I think. Okay, so I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, think about, you know, if you live alone, think about sorting things out, especially if you've got pets, but also whether you've got pets or not. You don't want to be lying there for weeks, do you? You know, and it may not be that because you've died, it may be because you've had an accident. You should have some provisions set up. Anyway, thank you. And until I see you again, may your God go with you. Bye.